Okay, let's go ahead and dig in. I believe we are recording. Yes, we are recording. So be aware of that. Don't say anything too evil in the course of the next hour. It is set up so that you all came in muted, and I'll ask you to leave your microphone muted unless you're speaking, and that will help with everyone's audio quality. And I'll introduce myself again because there are a few more folks who have popped on since I introduced myself a few minutes ago. I am Don Haas. I'm the Director of Teacher Programming at the Paleontological Research Institution, which is in Ithaca, New York, and I am PRI's only, up until a week and a half ago, I was PRI's only telecommuter. Now we are all telecommuters, and I live in Buffalo. I am also both a former high school science teacher and a former professor of science education, and have been working at PRI since June of 2008, so almost 12 years now. And Alex, you want to say a few words about yourself? John's not on yet.
Okay. I'm Alex Moore. I'm also at the Paleontological Research Institution. I'm a senior education associate there. My expertise is mostly in undergraduate level education. I've taught in various formal undergraduate settings for 35 years. And I've also done work with high school and middle school students. Right now, my focus is climate change. And so the resources that I'm going to share today are mostly about understanding climate change.
And thank you. And we'll also, I think, be joined by John Hendricks. He should be on any minute, I expect, who is our Director of Science Communication. And I'll ask you, for the sake of time, we won't go around and introduce everybody by speaking, but if you could put your name and where you're from and what you teach in the text chat, that'd be great. And if you're new to Zoom, if you just scroll to the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat bubble, and you can click on that and type into the chat. So if you want to just give a name and where you're from and what you teach in a sentence or so, that'd be great. And I'm going to go to screen share and look at the agenda, which I've actually made a copy of to write notes in, and there's a link in the agenda that will take you to this document that I'll be writing a few notes in. I don't know how much I'll plug in there, but I might write some in. So this is the first of two webinars with identical agendas. So we'll do this again on Wednesday. So if you've got colleagues that you think would be interested, they can certainly still register for Wednesday. And there you go. And we've done that. And I want to start off with a few words about the interesting situation that we're in. A few of you have known me for a long time and have heard me complain, mixed with praise, for NGSS, that the next generation science standards, I think, are fantastic. But if we think it's redoing the educational system, I'm concerned that we're probably wrong about that. But suddenly, we are redoing the educational system. I see standards efforts as akin to rewriting users' manuals for the educational operating system and thinking that maybe we rewrote the operating system. Well, all of a sudden, we've abandoned the operating system that's been in place for hundreds of years, particularly at the secondary and tertiary level, the high school and college. And we've got to come up with something on the fly. And that's stressful and not as important as saving lives, which we're doing by staying home right now. But it's a hell of an opportunity that I think if we think carefully about, we can create new things. This will be a source of innovations that will maybe make positive changes for a very long time to come in the educational system. And I think there are a lot of reasons to be encouraged about that amidst all of the other things that are going on that are not so encouraging. I also think that there are certain traditions we want to keep going. There's a nice piece on here that links to how Hamburg Middle School is continuing activities like morning announcements and Spirit Week and things like that. And I'll note that Tom Adams, the principal there, is a college buddy of mine. So that's kind of how that came to my attention. I think he's doing a great job in continuing spirits along those ways. And I'll pause for to hear what you think about that for just a couple of minutes. So if you've got thoughts on any of that, chime in, and I'm going to flip over and look at the chat and see who all's here. But if you've got thoughts, go ahead and chime in. Which requires unmuting if you're muted. And I'll note that I'm planning to do a virtual science in the pub on that topic on Thursday night, and I'll send everybody the link for that once I have it fleshed out a little bit more. Hi, John. And John has arrived. John, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, everyone. I'm John Hendricks. I am Director of Science Communication at PRI.
Thanks for joining us. Okay, so.
I actually have one interesting comment that
Yes.
is sort of, Dave Voorhees from Waubonsie Community College outside Chicago, by the way, that's sort of floating around some of the informal private discussions of faculty, and that, you know, the administration is now going to see how that all of a sudden, oh, we can all do this online and we don't need face-to-face classes anymore. And so we have to be careful about, quote unquote, how well we might do this online experiment for fear of administrators potentially saying, we don't need face-to-face classes anymore. Let's do it all online. Just an interesting comment for further discussion.
Yeah, and you know, related to that is recognizing that it is educators who know the most about what the problems of the current system are. And in a sense, this is an unshackling of teachers. So it is not an excuse to get rid of teachers. It is a potentially a great, like I said, unshackling of, you know, if you're frustrated by the constraints of the clock and the calendar and the state assessments and the various things that have driven us who have been in the public schools, or in the, not just public school, but in the structures of education, and have been frustrated by the things within those structures that limit us. It's an opportunity to change it, but it shouldn't be seen as an opportunity to throw human resources aside. Okay, on to the next chunk of the agenda, which is basically looking through a number of our resources and saying a few words about each of them. And there are, the agenda is linked with to all these different places. So if you click here, it will take you to the web page on our new website, which I forgot to actually introduce at the beginning. So I'll flash back and do a little bit of that. These are links to various resources for teaching paleontology and earth science from our web page. And let me go to the home page there and just say a few words about it. You'll see up at the top, there's Links to the Cayuga Nature Center and the Museum of the Earth are 2 public venues, and the homepage for the parent institution there, which was founded in 1932. And then we have recently added this Learn at Home banner. And maybe John, do you want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so like Don just said, we added this banner recently just as sort of a gateway to some of the resources that we already have, just to make it easier for you all to find them. I think maybe the most relevant of those links is the middle one, the one that says Science Education. If you click on that, can you click on that link, Don?
Yep.
So if you go there, it's going to take you to basically just a simple blog page that we've set up that lists some of our online resources just sorted out by intended audience. So we have resources for families and children, K-12 teachers and students, college faculty and students, as well as resources that might just be of interest to anyone and everyone.
And we've got a YouTube channel that we're adding content to pretty rapidly. And let's go back to the agenda. And the next piece is also John. And actually, John, if you'd rather share your screen than my sharing it, I can stop sharing and let you take over. Does that sound like a good idea?
It's a great idea if I can figure out what I'm doing. So.
Yes, and please be patient with us. We're all trying to figure this out. But to screen share, you just scroll to the bottom of the screen and at the bottom of the window, and there you go.
That works. Okay. So for the last 7 or 8 years, I've been working on a project called the Digital Atlas of Ancient Life. And if you want to find the Digital Atlas of Ancient Life, it's linked right off that page that Don was just showing you. We've got all kinds of different resources. I just want to focus on one of those for a few minutes here, but just to briefly introduce you to everything that's there. So if you go to digitalatlasofancientlife.org, you'll get to this homepage. We have a bunch of different resources on there to help folks identify fossils and just also learn about ancient life. So one of these resources that we have are field guides to fossils from different regions of the country. We also have a mobile app associated with each of these sort of digital field guides to fossils. We have an online paleontology textbook that we're continuing to build. We already have a lot of content on there. We have virtual fossil collections. That's what I'm going to spend a few minutes here talking specifically about. We also have some virtual exhibits and also a page at the bottom that includes curricular materials for teachers to use. But for now, what I want to focus on are these virtual collections. So we can enter that page. You can also access it by just clicking on Virtual Collection at the top. What these virtual collections are 3D photogrammetry models of fossil and modern specimens from both the collections and exhibits of the Paleontological Research Institution. And we have over 500 of these models now online. It's really one of the largest collections of 3D models of fossils available anywhere. We've divided them up by just different taxonomic groups, essentially. Does anybody have a favorite taxonomic group that they'd like to see highlighted? I'm willing to take requests. I know a lot of you are muted, so why don't we look at, let's do ammonites. Ammonites are always fun. So ammonites are mollusks. So if we go in phylum Mollusca, the way that you guys should think about these are just as sort of virtual, in a classroom setting, you might pull out drawers of actual fossil specimens. These are sort of arranged like virtual drawers. So if you want to see examples of...
forams was actually suggested in the chat.
Oh, forams was suggested. I'll go back to them after I look at cephalopods. But again, all of these you can look at it on your own as well. You click on cephalopods, so ammonites or cephalopods. You scroll down here. There's a brief introduction. Here's ammonoids. You can click there. And now we can get to some of the actual 3D models. And let's see if I can find a good one to look at. They take just a little bit of a few seconds to load. So here's one example. This is a fossil ammonite from PRI's collections. You can load the model. You can then make it full screen by clicking that button. It loads, and then you can just spin these things around and look at them, just almost as though they were real fossils. You know, it's just really neat, and you can zoom in. You can kind of pan around. They work. You know, they're not as good as the real thing, but I think they work almost as well. If you're doing a presentation for your students online, you know, I like to set it up just like this, where you load a page and you just scroll through, you know, and if you want to do a comparison, you could load that model. You know, again, just hit the full screen button in the lower right-hand corner. This one happens to have annotations, so you can use these little buttons at the bottom to just sort of cycle through the different annotations. Here, it's identifying features of the ammonite sutures, these lines that divided the internal chambers of the ammonite when it was alive. To get out of this, you just click escape. All of these models are hosted on
John,
yeah. Go ahead, Alex.
somebody asked about the scale on the model.
Oh, so
is there a way to know what size the fossils are?
there is. So this is one of the challenges of Sketchfab, is there's not, of the platform that hosts these models, is there's not a direct way to include a scale. But for every single model in the annotation, we've listed the size of the specimen. So even though there's no scale bar, you know, if this specimen, for example, is approximately 4.5 centimeters in diameter. So we do have scale information associated with almost every single model in the collection. One of the other things that can be done with these models is that you can actually view them directly in Sketchfab, and that's what I'm doing right now. So if I look at one of these models and I load it up, and I click on the little blue icon in the lower left corner, it will take you to a website called Sketchfab, which actually hosts all of these different models. You can think about Sketchfab as basically, you know, like YouTube is for video, where you upload video and then it just sort of distributes them. That's basically what Sketchfab is for 3D models. All of these 3D models can be downloaded for free. They all have Creative Commons public domain licensing. So essentially you can use them for any purpose you want. You can download the models and repost them on your own websites. Essentially you're free to do anything that you want with them. We have a huge collection. If you want to see the collection, you know, see all of the models at once within Sketchfab, you can do that. Here's some of our most popular models. You know, we have people like this crab. This is a modern day crab specimen. So we do have modern specimens for comparison with the fossils. Sorry, my internet's just a little bit slow here. You know, you can see all the features of this rather ornery looking crab here. You can zoom in on features of its, you know, of its face if you're interested.
There's also a question if these are true color.
They are true color, yeah. So the way that the photogrammetry is made is essentially you take 120 to 200 pictures of every single specimen. You take those images and plug them into some fancy software called Agisoft. Agisoft then does like millions of individual triangulations and creates sort of a mesh model. But then what's neat with these is that the original photographic data is then overlaid on top of that digital model, and that's why they're photorealistic. That's different than what you'd get if you took, say, a laser scan of a specimen. The laser scans have higher resolution, but you don't get the true color. And so the answer to the question is yes, these are true color digital models. If you want to share these models with your students, say you find a model that you really like, you go into Sketchfab and it's really easy to share it. You just click the share button beneath the model and you can just grab that. You can just hit copy, you grab that URL, and then you can paste it wherever you want. If you have your own website, if you're using something like Squarespace or WordPress, I think it's generally possible to just include an embed box for video, and then you can go to embed on Sketchfab, click copy, it'll grab that code, and you can just dump that code into the video box, and then the model will just load natively, like I showed in the, that's what I'm doing here within the virtual collection website. So just to review, everything that I've showed you right now can be accessed through the virtual collection off of the digital Atlas of Ancient Life. There was a request for forums. I'll just show those and then I'll wrap it up. And
there's also a question if there's information on key identification characteristics.
Yeah, so a lot of that information right now would be found within the Digital Encyclopedia of Ancient Life. So if we go there, under Digital Encyclopedia, if you wanted to know about these, like the ammonites, for example, you'd come down to, I scrolled right past them, you go to mollusks, then you go to cephalopods, because ammonites are cephalopods. And then you'd click on, here's the table of contents for that chapter, you go to ammonoids, that page loads up, and then it does have a lot of these key features that you see in the models, and a lot of these pages have actually incorporated the models themselves, so a student can both learn about the different types of fossils and interact with the models that I was just showing you right in that page. So you can look at the features, ammonite suture. You can come up here and that reminds you about what an ammonite suture is. So I'll stop talking for a second here. Does anybody have are there any questions that I can answer?
Yes, just very quickly, what did you click to get to this part? Because I thought I saw something about a quiz activity on there, which might be very handy.
Yeah, there's a quiz. So some of these pages have quizzes, some do not. What we've done just to make it simple for programming this stuff is we've just created little flip card quizzes. These are essentially just self-tests for students to test their own knowledge after they've looked at a page. So this says, does this cephalopod shell show evolute, convolute, or involute coiling? So if a student had read the chapter, they'd look at it and they'd realize that it has convolute coiling because of its particular features.
Could you stick the link for that into the chat?
Yeah, just this particular page?
Or the page that you link to it from.
Yes. What I'll do is as soon as I'm done talking here, I'll put all of these links that I just went through into the chat.
Great.
Are there any other questions?
Okay.
Okay. I will try now to figure out how to stop sharing. Okay, I think I got it actually. There we go.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So flipping back over to the agenda. Next up is things on virtual fieldwork experiences, and we've got a lot of stuff there. I'll note and I'll also ask either Alex or John to chime in if there's stuff in the chat that I should respond to. We've been working on virtual fieldwork experiences for on the order of 15 years, actually. Before I started working at PRI full-time, I was working with Rob Ross on some grant-funded programming. So we've got stuff that goes back a long time. Some of the stuff that goes back a long time, the technology has changed and doesn't work as well as it once did, but we keep on adding stuff. And the newest virtual fieldwork experiences we have are from the EPIC project. And there's a link there. And EPIC is Eastern Pacific Invertebrate Communities of the Cenozoic. And it's a science project that is digitizing biological collections funded by the National Science Foundation. And most of the grant goes towards that effort of digitizing the collections of a number of museums and other paleontological organizations. The outreach piece is developing virtual fieldwork experiences. And right now we have 2 online, Central California, the Kettleman Hills, and the Central California coast, the Parissima Formation. And I'm gonna just say a few words about the Kettleman Hills VFE, which has 5 modules, and we'll take a look a little bit at 1 or 2 of those. You can see the topics there, and this is a clickable image to take you to the different parts. Explore the landscapes. All of these, all of the EPIC VFEs were created using Esri's story maps platform, which is easy to make things that are lovely and pretty useful. I'm trying to get you all out of the way. There we go. This takes a look at the Kettleman Hills, which is just to the west of the Central Valley, actually at the very top of the Kettleman Hills. You can look west into the central, or look east rather, into the Central Valley. You can explore that landscape. One of the driving questions for this is, why are there sand dollars in the desert? The general driving question for the virtual fieldwork experiences that we've created is, why does this place look the way it does, with looks as essentially a stand-in for why is it the way that it is. And we've come up with a lot of resources for digging into that question, a lot of supporting questions, and a lot of tools and things that we'll take a quick glance at in the next several minutes. And here you can explore around and see the Kettleman Hills, and off over here is California's Central Valley, and some questions to drive you through. This is satellite view. The Kettleman Hills is this banana-shaped set of hills, and sort of zooming in and out at different levels to look at the place. And then you can really zoom in and look at some gigapans, which are very high resolution images that are mosaics of hundreds of pictures stitched together with this software. So here is a pretty interesting outcrop that you can look at writ large, and you can then zoom in to a level of detail where you can see individual grains in the outcrop, and look at the fossils in there, which come in a few different flavors. And I'm going to flip back over to the story map. And there are, I think, 4 different gigapans in this one. This one takes a look at a different member, and quite clearly shows lots and lots of sand dollars. And in a couple of places here, there are quarters hidden to show scale and stuff like that. And there are, back in the story map, questions to drive you through that in the different modules. And there is, if we scroll down a little further, we will get to sand dollars that are around today, and you can look at an embedded YouTube video of what they look like when they're alive. And there is a geologic map, which is pretty slow to load in full view, and it'll actually take a long time for it to load the whole state of California. But if you zoom in, it should load quicker. There is a zoomed in version of the geologic map where you can click anywhere and get some information about the particular formations that you're looking at. and it steps you through some of that, and then talking about fossil fuels and how this is important paleontologically for that purpose, how it came to form through plate tectonics and some of the plate tectonic story. And then there's us who put this stuff together. And that is one of the epic ones. We also have, we also do work in the critical zone, and the critical zone observatory network is a network of 9 observatories around the country, National Science Foundation funded major scientific research project where interdisciplinary teams of scientists are studying the critical zone, which is kind of shown in cartoon here, going from the tops of the vegetation to the bottom of the water table. And interdisciplinary teams of scientists that include geologists, hydrologists, botanists, ecologists, climatologists, engineers, and hydrologists, if I didn't say that, and so on, all working together to understand the interplay of rock, water, soil, and life, and doing some really, really interesting work. And the critical zone is a new area of science that has produced some really interesting findings in the last several years. One of my favorite bits of research that's really striking is that in some places there is diurnal variation at a depth of 8 meters. So daily changes in what's going on at a depth below the surface of 8 meters because of the action of roots. And so botanists working together with geologists to understand that interplay. And here are some of the driving questions for critical zone science. And this is looking at the Shale Hills Critical Zone Observatory near Penn State, and some discussion of using virtual fieldwork in the classroom, and noting that pretty much everything in either an earth science course or a biology course plays out in some meaningful way. For a long time, I've been saying outside your classroom door, but outside your door, all of these things, almost all of these things play out in some meaningful way in your local environment. And so studying what's happening in your local environment is a great way to study the typical units of an earth science course or an environmental science course or a biology course. An important point for a lot of our work is paying attention to complexity. And some of you who know me have heard me say this more than once. We need to, while it's important and valuable in many instances to simplify the seemingly complex, the world is a wickedly complex place. And very often we need to complexify the seemingly simple. And I think the current crisis is an incredible way to highlight that. There's some of the learning objectives and connecting to the next generation science standards. And I'll also draw attention to the ambitious science teaching projects, discourse primer for science teachers, and using these 4 goals for discussion in classes works very nicely with virtual field work. And I won't go into that. I'll let you dig into that on your own. And I do want to spend some time on the idea that some of these are a little rough around the edges, and that's, I don't know if I want to say intentional, but it's not unintentional. I think that one of our goals is that virtual fieldwork should be a catalyst for actual fieldwork. And one of the things that we're trying to do in all of these projects is flip the problem on its head of technology keeping people inside to using technology to document environments in a way that you can share it with other people. And so we put together some virtual fieldwork experiences that you should think of as not just ways to explore a particular place, but as models for exploring your own place. And I think the next thing on the agenda is looking at technical tools for making BFEs. And that opens up this page, which has descriptions of mostly, once you've got the hardware and you've got internet access, most of the things on this page are free. So the hardware being either a smartphone or a computer or a tablet, most of this stuff is free. So I'm gonna flip over to QuickTime.
John, you've got a question about whether there are examples of introductory general education college classes using BFEs.
That's a good question. Yes, I will add a link to Glenn Dolphin's work at the University of Calgary. And some of you know Glenn, AKA Flipper, who's a former earth science teacher and now a geology professor at the University of Calgary, who's put together some really phenomenal virtual fieldwork experiences for his 400-ish student introductory geology course. And he's also written a nice article on it that was published in the Journal of Geoscience Education, which remind me to put that link, somebody remind me to put that link into the agenda if I forget to do it. And links to how he's using virtual fieldwork in his class. Are there other questions I should be? I can see there are 15 comments in the chat. Should I look at those?
I think he's got most of it. Most of it's requests for links.
Okay. Okay, and the links are mostly there in the agenda, and if they're not, let me know what they are and I'll add them. So I'm going to show you, so I'll flip over to the page that has links to these things, but I'm going to show you at least a couple of the smartphone apps. I should pay attention to the time as well. And I'll note that if you've got a Mac and an iPhone, then you can share your screen from your iPhone by using QuickTime, and I can put info on how to do that in the agenda or somewhere. It's really pretty simple. And one of the things listed there is Rocked, which was created by folks, I think, at the University of Wisconsin. And it's a free smartphone app, and you open it up and it will tell you, using the GPS on your phone, it'll tell you where you are. So I'm sitting in the Allegheny Plateau on Devonian age bedrock that's church sandstone and limestone of the Loess Blanc or Boas Blanc limestone stratigraphic unit. And I can click on that and get more info on the particulars of the unit. And you can see it's a pretty detailed description, and you can do this for anywhere in the country. You can also look at the geologic map by just clicking on the map icon, and you can pinch to zoom out and click anywhere on there. So you can see I'm not too far from Niagara Falls. If I click here, this will tell me about the Camella, Syracuse, and Vernon formations. And there are the Lockport group, and so on. So other stuff that's in here, there's a Brunton Compass, so you can actually record the dip and the strike wherever you are, and put that on top of the stuff. You can see the paleo geography from when the particular unit you're standing on formed, and you can scroll through time with the little scroll thing at the top. And it's a pretty sweet little free app. And I'm going to back out of that and see if there's other stuff that I want to look at right now. I'll point out the existence of Firefox and just mention that it's there. And that allows you, Firefox allows you to access all of the instrumentation in your phone and collect data with it. And it also put together with funding from the National Science Foundation. And this one actually has lab activities and other activities associated with it. We were not involved in any way in the making of that app, but it's pretty cool. And we want to bring
John, question.
Yes.
About what the first app was called. Yeah, okay, we've got it. Rocked, R-O-C-K-D.
Yep.
And I would throw out there too, if you all use flyover country, you don't need to be in an airplane to use
Right.
flyover country. You can do it sitting still, and it's similar to what you saw in
Yep.
Rocked.
Yeah, and so flyover country, we'll take a look at that too. Back out of here. And flyover country I put in my travel folder, which I'm not going to be doing for a long time. But you can create a path to go wherever. So if I'm going to drive from Buffalo to Ithaca, click done and create path. It'll make a drive where it shows what you will see along that path. And if you're in your car as the passenger, shouldn't be doing this while you're driving, you can look at the various all the things that pop up along your way. So the color codes indicate different classes of things. So I don't remember my colors, but apparently yellow is landscape features. This tannish is mammal fossils. Oh, well, that's not quite right. But anyway, you can play around with that and see what you've got, and you can save it for offline use, which is nice if you're either going into a rural area or you're flying and don't have internet access while you're in flight, or don't have a lot of bandwidth anyway. Then we've got smartphone and tablet apps. So those that we were just looking at are for accessing information about a field site. The next set of things here are for capturing aspects of the site. So this picture is not just a picture, it's a full spherical panorama that was created using Google Street View. The Street View app, which is different than Street View within Google Maps. And I'll flip back over to my phone and go into my photography folder and open up Street View, which I created the panorama we were just looking at using my phone, and be embarrassed and show my living room. If you open up the app and do this, it will help you, guide you through the what you need to do to create a panorama. And you can see down at the bottom of my screen, there's a white circle with a check mark in it that's got yellow indicating that I've gone almost 25% of the set of pictures that I need to do to make a full panorama. And it will turn green when you've got the full 360 spherical panorama. And you can actually stitch it while it's incomplete. And Pegman runs across and puts the pieces together, and there is a look at my living room. And we created it that quickly, and we could publish it to Google Maps. I'm not going to publish my living room to Google Maps, but you can do it that quickly and share it with your friends. I will take a very quick look at Turnio as well, which Turnio right now is only available, and I try and click on my computer and that doesn't work. Turnio is a free app that allows you to create 3D models, and that's kind of funky. And I will just begin that process. I'll also note that I was really worried that this was going away, but it's seen a very nice update earlier this year, so it's not going away. And you just move it around, and it captures what is in the center of your thing, and this creates models like the fossil models that John was showing earlier, but it's a free app that's on your phone. So we'll take a quick peek at the last model that I made using my phone, which was a dead sperm whale washed up on the beach in Oregon when we were out there to create a virtual fieldwork experience for the Oregon coast, which will be the next one that we create. So there was this probably about 15-foot long dead sperm whale that I walked around and made a model of, which is pretty gross, but also pretty cool. And I unfortunately forgot to put anything in it for scale. But this was created with a free app on my phone. So let me flip back over to here. Let's see what else we've got. So there are other things that you can poke around on related to that. One other one that we'll take a look at for a web-based tool is Touch Terrain. And Touch Terrain was again created by folks with the NSF funding at Iowa State University. And what you can do with this, and I should have had my 3D models on hand, is you can make 3D models of anywhere. So let's see, we'll go to Ithaca. If I can scroll myself out, which I need to move you all out of the way for that. It does not yet have a search box. Oops, and I've gone plenty far. So you actually need to scroll on the map to wherever it is you want to go. We'll go to Niagara Falls. And once you've got where you want to be, you can recenter the box in the current view. And I'm going to zoom in a little further. Yeah. And the defaults, whoops. It's weird, where'd the rest of the box go? The defaults work pretty well, so for the sake of time, I'm gonna just use the defaults. And what this is gonna do is create a 3D model of the topography. You can also scale these together. And if you've got a 3D printer, you can do this. If you don't, you can upload it to the web and have someone else print it for you, which will keep people in business in this currently weird time. What's going on? And it'll think for just a minute. And create a model that, like I said, if you've got a 3D printer, you can print it out, which is, you know, as I'm thinking about this, probably not real helpful for the current situation, especially since it doesn't seem to be working. So we'll skip past that for, oh, there we go. So there is the 3D model, which does not look to be a very good resolution. So something's screwy with this one. So forget about this part of today, but know that it's there and it's kind of, it's pretty interesting. And let's see if there's anything else I want to do here. Somehow we
Don, do we need to be concerned about time?
Yes, we need to be concerned about time, so I will get away from that and go back here. We have lots more to share. So the teacher-friendly guides to earth science, we'll just take a quick peek at. These are regional guides to the earth science of 7 different regions. When you put them all together, you've got the whole country. PDFs of these are all free. So as I said, there's the whole country. Be aware that that's there. We'll take a look at visit the website for the Midwest one, which is in HTML, and you can see the set of chapters that we have that is common across almost all the regions. Not every region has glaciers for obvious reasons. Has a glacier chapter for obvious reasons, because not everywhere has been glaciated. But that's an overview of what's there. And these, all of our teacher-friendly guides were written with the scientifically literate person in mind who's teaching and maybe suddenly teaching in a content area that is not their area of expertise. So think of the biology teacher who suddenly becomes an earth science teacher. And that's a good way to think of one of the audiences for that. We'll take a very quick peek at the Climate Change and Energy Program's web page on the PRI website. And you can see what all is there. And the teacher-friendly guide to climate change. And associated resources with that. And that also has its own page. And I will note also the award-winning Teacher-Friendly Guide to Climate Change, which we are working to get out to teachers all over the country. And some associated resources with that. The climate change clearinghouses for New York and Massachusetts are both managed by Ingrid Zabel, who is our climate change education resource manager or some such title, and the curator for the New York and Massachusetts clearinghouses for climate change science, climate science. This has a lot of GIS resources for looking at climate change. And we also have a page on climate change in Central New York, which is not most of you. And do you want to say stuff about the environmental data page, Alex?
I actually have never seen the environmental data page.
I think it's new. But
oh,
I think
okay,
it's
cool.
also connected to things that you've been more involved with than I have.
Right. So yeah, we have been working to deploy instrumentation around our home base at PRI in Ithaca, New York, and the Cayuga Nature Center, which is one of our other venues. And we're trying to collect pretty simple environmental measurements over a period of time. And so these, some of which are available in real time on the web, and some of which we upload episodically so that people can take a look at it. But the idea is, as we develop these resources, the idea is to get students and teachers outside in the environment with really simple tools, with a thermometer, for instance, or with a series of thermometers to be able to make measurements yourself. Now, that was the idea before all of us can't actually go and interact with our students anymore. So one of my jobs over these next couple weeks is to try to present these in a way that you can look at independently, or that your students can look at independently, and make these experiments or make these measurements virtually and understand what the data are telling us about what's happening in our environment as we go forward in real time.
Thanks. And that's time for wrapping up. There's an evaluation form that a key question on there is, are you interested in webinars that dig into things that we glanced at in just a few minutes today and spending a full hour or potentially longer on? I mean, we could, there are many things here that we could do multiple webinars on. So this is just scratching the surface. So the evaluation form is here, and please just take a few minutes to fill that out. And I'll also note that down at the bottom is a place to donate to support our work so we can keep on doing this. And it's a challenging time for public venues that get some of their revenue from people coming and paying admission. We're not going to be doing that for a while yet. So if you can kick in a few bucks or become a member of PRI, that would be awesome. And we'll stick around and take questions, comments, whatever. If you've got things you want to say, the agenda is done except for the